some of the things that I wanted to point out before I switch. This is all in your notes on 8.5 from yesterday. Don't forget that smog is temporary only when you have the right conditions and the right atmosphere. You got to put a lid on the smoke to make it react into smog. So you can only get smog when there are atmospheric inversion conditions. Remember that smog is made more dangerous for humans if there are particulate materials present. And so we really worry about ashes. Like smoke comes from burning, so the ashes would help all the smoke ingredients get into your lungs. Remember that you have an extended contact time when you're exposed to air pollution, and particulates keep your lungs in contact with those pollutants. I also want to remind you from number 42 that you can control particulates in red, that a scrubber also controls oxides, and that in cars we're trying to remove the ingredients of smog. So a smog check and a catalytic converter are just about making other gases that aren't dangerous. You want to use the catalytic converter to complete all the chemistry so that you don't throw out the ingredients that make smog. Anybody want to ask me about those before I move on? Yeah.
The scrubber, does it have anything to do with like in the dumping stuff, how they have the like fake rain going all the time? Is it due to like toxins that are coming out from any trash?
Sort of. So the same way that you, like, this is a way to control particulates, and that's exactly why they run the misters at the indoor transfer station on Gutierrez. That is the same. San Cibuelas, sorry. They run that mister to keep dust down. And they collect all that water, and they filter it, and they take all that stuff, and I'm going to put it in the wastewater treatment facility, actually. Yeah?
Out of the two types of smog that you wrote on the board, number 41, is there one that's more dangerous than the other? Or are they equal?
I think so. I think this one.
Is more dangerous?
But it probably depends on how much you get of them, right? Like, a whole bunch of one would be worse than a little of the other either way. But I think that if molarity were equal, if concentration were equal, the photochemical would be worse, I think. Yeah? No. Okay. I'd like to talk about indoor air pollution. The rest of your assignment is all about indoor stuff. Please look at study goal number 42, 43, 44. This is a giant hint. Use the book. There's like a little diagram in your book. That's like pure gold. This is one of those times when I'm not going to just read to you what you can read for yourself. This one. So like this diagram of how it happens and then what the indoor air pollutants are. So technically in the United States, your risk of dying from indoor air pollution is almost exactly equal to your risk of dying from outdoor air pollution. Those are on page 540 and 541. Indoor air pollution is really serious, and because most of us ignore that, the College Board always asks about indoor air pollution. It's like a severe threat to our health that most of us ignore. Everybody thinks that outside is gross because that's where the other people are, but inside must be fine because I don't mind my own fart smells. But indoor air pollution is just as deadly to the average American as outdoor air pollution. And there's a whole list of stuff that I'm not going to talk about, 41, 42, 43, 44. Those I'm not going to talk about. Yeah?
Do we have to like write all those down, or should we just should we choose a couple key ones to use as an example?
I think you should probably know all of them, because the College Board could ask you about any of those. There's just a couple in particular that I'd like to add, which weren't maybe that compelling in your book.
This is number 44.
I actually want to start on 46 now. Yeah, that what I was referring to with the diagram was number 44, yes. But number 46 turned out to be a really major learning moment for me. So before I ever taught AP Environmental Science, I had to go to a training by the College Board. I was in San Diego for 5 days, full time, like 8 to 5, 5 days in a row, learning about this class from a dude named David, who was like one of the first people to teach the class. He wrote the course, and he approved the textbooks. David Hong. Really nice dude. Oh my God, that guy totally inspired me. He was really moving to know, and that guy was a badass. I would love for my children to learn from him. In my training, they kept talking about radon gas. And this is really funny because that name is also really famous in the boat world. In Santa Barbara, there's a very historic family called the Radin family, who's made most of the commercial fleet locally, and they've sold molds all over the world, and Radin boats are considered to be some pretty badass boats for certain types of applications. And so every time I would see this, I was like, why do they keep talking about the Radins? And then the test questions would be about radon gas, and so eventually I was like, hey David, what is, and he's like, oh, radon, everybody knows radon. And I was like, oh yeah, totally, everybody knows radon. So I started to look it up. And apparently, the number of humans in America whose death is attributed to radon gas poisoning equals the number of Americans who die in car accidents. Or whose death is attributed to tobacco smoke? Meaning this is one of the largest threat variables.
Are we that little red zone?
Oh yeah. And so, when I heard how deadly radon gas was, I was like, that's weird. Pull up a US map. And it took me exactly that long to be like, whoa, wait, pull up a California map. And I was like, pull up a Santa Barbara County map. Ooh.
That's on the base map.
That's where we are right now, and where my house is.
Why are we so
Lucky.
Blessed?
God said, you guys had to do it easy here. Let's kill you with poison.
Yeah. Well, suffice it to say, this kind of got me thinking about the radon gas thing, so now I know a lot more. And I feel like we should probably be aware of this, first of all, just because we live here, and second of all, because the AP test always has this. So I know why we have this, for example. Radon gas is part of the radioactive decay cycle of uranium. So if you happen to live in a part of the world that has high uranium deposits, which are coastal sedimentary rock, so sedimentary rock that form near the ocean, if your rocks have seashells in them, your chances are good that you'll have high levels of uranium. And if there's high levels of uranium in the rocks, then that uranium breaks down. And one of the steps of the decay is radon, which is a gas. So listen very carefully. The atom is uranium. That's like part of a chunk of uranium that's in the ground. That's just rocks. Same uranium we did for nuclear power, by the way. It's just uranium. And then that uranium will eventually fall apart into another thing called radium. And that lasts a really long time. And then the radium can turn to a gas called radon. And that is a gas, so it'll come out of the ground. And if you inhale it, that's bad for you because it continues to decay eventually into lead inside of you. So it's like getting lead poisoning that you can breathe in.
Awesome.
And because it's odorless, flavorless, and visible, you could be exposed to it all the time and not know it. Like for all I know, I have been. So I looked it up. When we bought my house, I was like, am I on a radon deposit? And the lady who tested our house was like, no, you're good. But those people 2 doors down just had to move out. And I was like, what?
We still bought the house.
And we still bought the house, yeah, because I don't care about my kids. There's things that you can do to isolate your house. So apparently our house is already protected. In many parts of Santa Barbara, you'll see a foundation being poured over a sheet of plastic. That's to keep the radon gas from rising into your home. There's like special vents that you can use and like seals on your electrical boxes. But you know, a radon test is like $43 on Amazon. And honestly, like, if you live in here, it might be worth the $43 to go on Amazon and get a radon test. And just leave it. I mean, like, you need more stuff to be worried about right now. Since you're going to be home for 4 weeks of stressing out about coronavirus, why not add some fun to this prize? You can get it delivered to your door.
Let's see if you're gonna buy some radon poisoning. Which corona?
Like it looks just coastal, but is that like actually like miles inland?
Yeah, so that's like the coastal area up to the foothills.
But that's like where everyone lives. Like
I know, that's my point, bro.
No one lives anywhere like in the middle of nowhere.
No, just unfortunate. I used to live on the ridgeline, and that was golden, but I moved off the mountains. Yeah.
How does the gas get stuck in the lungs?
So, you know, contact time, and then you absorb it. So if you happen to cross the blood barrier, and then it's a dissolved gas, then that decay continues, and now it's not a gas anymore, and it's just in your bloodstream. So your cells are not really that smart. Your cells are basically porous to little stuff. Some things they favor, so they'll suck up stuff that's attached to carbon. Some things they just ignore, and a lot of this stuff just gets incorporated into your body by just being in your bloodstream. Like, we're not as complex as we would think. Your book explains what 1, 2, and 3 are, and I've seen that on the AP test a number of times. I just want to be clear that the College Board does care about radon, because even if you hadn't heard about this, most people have. Yeah.
So was the last picture that you showed us, was that like the stuff that you couldn't do in your house if it's on top of it?
I knew a really nice local family involved with the schools, wonderful children, nice people. I still see Brian sometimes. He owns a boat, and like we go out to the ocean together a lot. Their family, the father was a construction worker and like saved all his nickels and dimes and got started swinging a hammer and built this like huge empire and kind of got wealthy and built the house of his dreams. And literally like on the week that they were getting to ready to move in, they realized that their house had extremely high radon levels, and they basically had to tear it down and do it over. And do all this like massive renovation to a brand new home that had never been lived in. During the time that I was teaching them, I taught the older daughter first. She was in that class when I was teaching the son in this class. And I was talking about this, and he's like, oh, my dad. We didn't get to live in our house this year because we had to tear it up and rebuild it because all this stuff. Yeah.
So, one of the questions is like, what can be done if you find it? Like, apart from tearing down your whole house, is there anything that can be done?
I'm not an expert on these things. No, I didn't. I like the actual construction things that you would do in your house. It depends how it's getting into your house. So that's what I mean to say that like if it's seeping in through cracks in your foundation, I suppose there might be a way to seal it, but you need to make it non-permeable to gases rising up from the ground. So like most of our bathrooms have a big cutout where the toilet is seated, and so a lot of times if you like dig around your toilet, that's just sand. And so for some homes, you would have to pour concrete over that, and then for some homes, you might need to strip your floors and use like some kind of a sealant, I don't know, the red stuff, red guard. It depends on how your house is built. If you're on like an elevated thing, you have to just vent the crawl space. So it really does depend on your home. That's what I mean. I'm not an expert. Yeah. No? Hand? Was that not a hand? Melissa, you didn't raise your hand. Damn right you didn't. Keep it that way. Another one that I wanted to talk about was study goal number 45. It asks about HVAC systems. Does everybody know that that's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning?
Oh, I thought it was talking about hand vacuuming.
And so HVACs, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, those filters can get colonized by stuff and then you blow around funk through your home. I was in a house where they pulled out the air filter. They thought that the air conditioning had broken and basically the air stopped flowing because the air conditioner filter had turned into this big like jello mold of slime and mildew. The lady didn't know that they're supposed to change it every 6 months. So she had like a 9-year-old air conditioning filter, and in their house they run the air conditioner 24/7. And they used to breed golden retrievers.
Oh my god.
So for a period of like 5 years, there was like 17 golden retrievers running through the house, and all that fur got into the filter in the air conditioner, and then they had a leak in the roof, and that stuff got wet. And then it started to like grow funk. And so she like called the air conditioning company and said like, this had a 10-year warranty. I can't believe it stopped working after 9 years. And then like the guy comes over and goes, ma'am, were you aware that it says here that you're going to change the filter every 6 months? And she's like, what? And it had like this layer. It was just like green jelly funk. And they had basically been growing mildew spores and spreading them throughout the house. And so it's very likely that when they were sick, they got more sick because they weren't breathing, they were high mildew spore in their air quality, indoor air quality. So the HVAC thing is really serious because your HVAC systems can move stuff around that may not be good for you, so those filters are really important. That's both a personal story and relevant to study goal number 45. One last thing. Please go to the vocab of assignment 8.5. I'd like to tell you a story.
You have 2 minutes.
2 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Go. I was in this place called South Coast Plaza, which is a shopping center in Orange County. My girlfriend at the time liked to park in a part of the parking lot that I always hated. I used to complain, I don't want to go there because it's really gross, and she would say, yeah, but it's got the secret entrance to Nordstrom's. So we would always argue. And I remember this one time when we were coming into the secret entrance to Nordy's, with all the other cars around. These are cars. I don't have time to draw all the wheels. When we were coming into the Nordstroms, I remember noticing a very beautiful young woman walking into the Nordstroms in front of us. And as soon as the doors opened, the air sucked into the Nordstroms, and her dress really highlighted her figure. I remember seeing such. I'm trash. We all knew that. Okay. I'm sure that she had great value for other things as a person, but anyway, I noticed her figure at that moment. As we walked in, I remember thinking, God, it smells awful in this Nordstrom's. It just smells like the parking lot. And that day, after we went to Sanrio and bought too much Hello Kitty stuff, stereotypes, she's Korean and she's obsessed with Hello Kitty stuff when she was 17. We went to go eat in the upstairs food court.
Korean barbecue.
No. Let me finish. And while we're eating onion soup,
Close.
damn it,
What happened while eating onions?
we could see all the dust going out from upstairs, and that's the chimney effect. When hot air rises out, cold air is drawn in.